Yo, what's up, chefs? It's Vinny, and I have something very, very special for you guys today, and that is my Tempest Flurry Herald Chain Invoker. And yes, that's right, we have infinitely chaining heralds, just like back in 0.1, which are vaporizing everything in a 5-mile radius. We're using Tempest Flurry combined with nuclear amounts of attack speed for super smooth and efficient movement. And of course, we're still one-shotting Pinnacle bosses with Flicker Strike. Just go ahead and see for yourself. Hello, you beautiful people. I hope you enjoyed the intro. And before we hop into the guide, let me start off by quickly saying that this video is going to be a little bit off the cuff, so to speak, because I only started fleshing out this build in the crackhead hours of last night. So although it is incredibly strong already, you should assume that there are plenty of areas for improvement. I wanted to go ahead and get the video out sooner rather than later though, because I think a lot of you are going to have a ton of fun with this build. To go ahead and get things started, as always, we do have a detailed mobalytics planner. This is going to have your mapping rotation, your bossing rotation. It's going to have trade links for every single item slot, including your jewels, even your Heart of the Well, for example. I've got a nice trade link for that. Make sure when you're trying to use the trade links, you're actually clicking on the links over here, these highlighted links. Do not try and use the buttons up here. I have no control over these buttons, and they do not work well. Just use these links down here. And of course, finally, we also have a POE import code up at the top, which will take you to my POE planner for any of you that like to nerd out in POE or just see some of the more specific details, of course. And with that out of the way, we're going to go and hop into a quick mapping demonstration followed by a T4 Zest so I can just show you guys the rotation for maps and bosses, give you an idea of the general gameplay loop. Let's go ahead and get started. Of course, I've got some maps here in my inventory. I'm going to do this mineshaft, I suppose. I don't really know what mineshaft is, but as you can see, just a normal 6-mod Delirious map. Nothing super special. We got our tablets going. And since this map is going to get pretty crazy pretty quick, before we hop into it, I'm actually just going to briefly kind of go over what's about to happen. And most of this is also covered in the written planner, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I'm just going to give you the short and sweet of it. When you hop into a map, you're going to kill a couple packs with Tempest Flurry. That's going to build up energy for cast on critical, which will then trigger Profaned Ritual. That is going to give you power charges, which in turn can be used to cast Charge Staff. Once you have Charge Staff going, you are good to go. At that point, you're just going to be using Tempest Flurry to move around. That's going to be sending out tons of these little Charge Staff projectiles. Those will be triggering Herald of Ice, which will then be triggering Armor Explosion and Herald of Thunder, which will then chain back to Herald of Ice, which will chain back to Armor Explosion, Herald of Thunder, and it'll just be an infinite loop, and that's what's going to cause the massive screen-wide AoE. So just to dive into specifically what's causing the chaining back and forth, just to clarify, I did not come up with this interaction. I don't know who did, but the place that I got the information from is this fella right here, and I'll be including a link to his video down in the description if you want to check that out. He doesn't go into much detail explaining this specific interaction, but he does bring it up as an option. I explain the interaction in the written planner, so just to give you the short and sweet of it here, essentially Ulnatal's Embrace support allows us to break armor with chaos damage. Usually you can only do this with physical damage. Herald of Ice, of course, has no physical damage. Now that we can break armor with chaos damage, we slot in Armor Explosion. And essentially what ends up happening is we proc Herald of Ice naturally through Charge Staff with supports like Freeze, and then also we're freezing with Herald of Thunder as well with Freeze and Bitter and stuff like that. We proc Herald of Ice. That will then break the enemy's armor, which will proc Armor Explosion. And then This is where it gets a little bit complicated, but Armor Explosion and Herald of Thunder will then be freezing more enemies, and we specifically have Piety's Mercy and Herald of Thunder, so that way only Armor Explosion will then be shattering those new frozen enemies, which will re-proc Herald of Ice, which will then go back to Armor Explosion and Herald of Thunder, back to Herald of Ice, and you get the idea. It just ping-pongs back and forth. In specific, you need to have Piety's Mercy socketed into Herald of Thunder, because to proc Herald of Ice, you have to shatter an enemy with a non-Herald attack hit, aka Armor Explosion is doing that for us. I'm sure this will get patched out in 0.4. I could only imagine, but there'll probably be a new way to make this work in 0.4. Somebody will probably figure that out. But for the time being, you can infinitely chain Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion back to back. If you want to use Herald of Thunder as well, which I recommend, just make sure you have Piety's Mercy in and you'll be good to go. And at this point, some of you are probably asking, okay, so we can break armor with chaos damage, but where do we get the chaos damage from? Great question. We have currently, the interaction is working, and we only have 3250 chaos damage top end, and we're getting all of that explicitly from this one Venomous Rune of Agony, which is giving us 13% of damage as extra chaos damage, and then we also have a Heart of the Well Jewel, which is giving us 12% as well. And there's plenty of other places you can get chaos damage, like right here you can get 5%, up here on Pure Chaos you can get another 11%, but you don't need all the possible options because you don't actually need that much chaos damage. Like I said, I've got 3250 top end, and the interaction is working. I'm fully breaking armor, and I'm causing the chain reaction massive explosions. So as long as you get roughly this amount, or probably even less, I don't know the exact breakpoint yet, I'll figure that out for a future video, you'll be able to do the chain reaction, you'll be good to go. The easiest way to do it, I would say, would probably just be the one rune plus Pure Chaos if you can't get or can't afford a Heart of the Well with gain extra damage as chaos. Do also keep in mind that we're keeping our Tempest Flurry very low level. I've got mine set to level 6, and this is to help with the mana cost. Although we do have pretty much infinite mana sustain with Walker of the Wilds paired with a single Greater Mind Rune, since all of our damage that is proccing Herald of Ice is actually coming from the Shockwave of Charged Staff. We don't really need the damage from Tempest Flurry. It still just feels better to keep this at a low level to me, but I am still kind of messing around with that, so just keep that in mind. But we're going to go and hop into the map now. Okay, brief technical difficulty. I don't know why, but the Mineshaft map in specific seems to be really laggy. I tried going to like some interlude zones or whatever, and I didn't have any lag. So instead, we're actually going to throw a map into a different map node. As you can see, I didn't die. It's just lagging. I don't know why. So we're going to go and throw it into a different map node and try that. We'll run it back, and hopefully this works out a little bit better. I'm going to go and throw in a new tablet because one of mine ran out. And this is going to be a deserted map, which I'm quite familiar with this layout, actually. This should be a good layout to show it. But as I already said, the build starts off a little bit slow because we just got to build up cast on critical. And so now we already have power charges. We're going to go and use Charge Staff. And now everything is about to start to get demolished. The build does ramp up a little bit more because we get a bunch of Headhunter stacks, obviously. Which makes it, just that much better. But you don't need Headhunter stacks, or you don't need Headhunter. If anything, a Darkness Enthroned with attack speed runes could actually be better. I just haven't personally tried that quite yet. But even if it is better, I would probably just still use Headhunter because Headhunter is obviously so much fun. And so yeah, this is kind of what you can expect. As you can see, I'm not really paying too much attention, but we're getting some massive explosions here and there. Or maybe not here and there, we're getting them quite often. There's actually an invisible mana siphon ring on one of those rare mobs that I couldn't see. That's why I was running out of mana. And let's do a little bit more. I'll actually also show you guys that you can still use Flicker Strike. Like, there's no reason necessarily not to. But you don't need to, obviously, with this setup. And this Breach will be pretty good to demonstrate the power of the build as well. Unfortunately, there is Chilled Ground, which Chilled Ground does suck a little bit for this build because it slows down your Tempest Flurry quite a bit, but, it's not the end of the world, obviously. As you can see, we are getting some pretty massive explosions, and the build is super smooth. It is still a work in progress. Like, I've definitely got some things to iron out a little bit. Maybe not iron out, but just optimize. But even in its current state, it's just incredibly strong, as you can see. And that's the map. I'll catch you guys in just a second at T4 Zesht. Alrighty, here we are at T4 Zesht, and there's two ways that you can go about this. The first of which does not rely on any skill or support gem swaps, and it's very, very easy. All you have to do is walk into the boss arena, start the boss fight. You're going to smack him with Tempest Flurry 10 to 20 times, give or take. Essentially until you see that you have about 40 to 50 combo on your quarterstaff strike. We're able to build up combo for quarterstaff strike thanks to culmination support. And then we also have Aelith's chimes in here as well, and then rapid attacks and charge profusion. But the two important ones are culmination and Aelith's chimes. This allows us to expend the combo on quarterstaff strike to generate power charges. We will then use those power charges to use flicker strike, and the boss will die. If you don't want to use flicker strike for mapping, which is perfectly fine, I'm still kind of undecided. Like, I kind of like using it alongside Tempest Flurry sometimes, but sometimes not really. If you still want to use it, all you have to do is swap out Garrokon's Resolve for Magnified Area when mapping. If you're not going to use it when mapping, just keep Garrokon's Resolve in there. Only use it for bosses, and you don't need to do any swaps, which is probably the better way to go if I'm being honest. Outside of that, you do have one other way you can do this, which if you don't want to deal with like building up the combo and then using quarterstaff strike and then using flicker strike, you can do what we've been doing for our flicker strike build, which is just go ahead and take Profane Ritual out of Cast on Critical, move down these three supports, and then replace Cast on Critical with Sacrifice, weapon swap to your Rattling Scepter, and a shield. Doesn't really matter which shield actually. And then just go ahead and use Profane Ritual on your Skelly Boys. That will give you power charges. You can then use Charge Staff. Then you can get some more power charges, and you can use those on Flicker Strike. So either or is completely fine. Personally, I just leave Cast on Critical in. Like, I don't use Sacrifice anymore. I just go ahead and leave Cast on Critical in, leave Profane Ritual in, and I just build up combo with Tempest Flurry, expend it with Quarterstaff Strike, and build up the charges that way. So let me go ahead and show you that method now. It's very, very simple. The boss is going to come out. I'm going to smack him a bunch, Quarterstaff Strike, and then Flicker Strike. I'll dodge one attack, Quarterstaff Strike, and now I Flicker Strike, and he's dead. Easy peasy. Nothing difficult about it. And now, if some of you are probably wondering, Vinny, why don't you have Culmination and Flicker Strike so you can build up combo for Flicker Strike at the same time and then it'll do more damage? The reason is because you cannot use Garrokon's Resolve and Culmination in the same skill. I don't exactly know why, but you just can't. And based on my calculations, Garrokon's Resolve is way, way, way better than Culmination at roughly 40 to 50 combo. If you were at like 200 combo before you used Quarterstaff Strike and Flicker Strike, then Culmination would probably be better, but obviously there's no point in doing that. If we can just get to 40 combo, use Quarterstaff Strike, then Flicker Strike and the boss dies, we'll just go ahead and do it that way. And Garrokon's Resolve allows us to do that, so that's why we're using that instead of Culmination. I already know there's going to be people in the comments saying, Vinny, why don't you put the combo on Flicker Strike too? So I just thought I would cover that real quick. So at this point, you should understand the general gameplay loop, the rotation for mapping and bossing, and you should also understand the interaction between Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion, which is creating that infinite chain effect that just causes the massive screen-wide AoE. Keep in mind that I think my character specifically could get a little bit better at this, obviously, because we're still pretty lightning damage heavy since we're transitioning from our previous Flicker Strike build over to this one. And once we get some more cold damage, or if you already have more cold damage, then you'd probably be seeing even more explosions than what I was showing in the intro or the mapping demonstration. But obviously it's already working extremely well for us, and that's even with being pretty lightning heavy. But now that you guys understand all of that, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the passive tree first, and then I'll cover some of the gearing stuff right after that. So into the passive tree, largely speaking, this is going to be quite similar to what we were using for Flicker Strike. Realistically, it's going to be pretty similar to like most Invoker trees as far as I'm concerned. We're obviously getting a lot of crit nodes over here. Here, we're getting a lot of the quarterstaff nodes right here because a lot of these are very, very good. We're still grabbing enhanced reflexes for the deflection, evasion rating, dexterity, getting more crit over here. And then outside of getting all of the crit related stuff, you do want to make sure that you have at least this and this power charge wheel. So that way you can have 6 power charges. I don't think you need to come up here and get this one for a 7th power charge, because these small nodes are not that good increased power charge duration compared to down here you get energy shield, or up here you get critical damage bonus, and this is +2 to maximum power charges. So I would just leave this one out. We really don't need it because your charge staff shockwave does the same damage whether it's from 1 power charge or 2 or 7. So the only reason we're even getting 6 is for Flicker Strike specifically. Outside of that, obviously crit chance, crit damage, defense, and then the only other thing primarily would be attack speed. So we're grabbing attack speed here from tenfold attacks. We're grabbing more attack speed here from Chakra of Thought. We're grabbing even more over here from Chakra of Rhythm. And then we also have a Megalomaniac, which is allocating Rapid Strike, which is right down here. And this is giving us even more attack speed. So we are getting a lot of attack speed from our tree. And then we're also getting a lot of attack speed from our gear, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. For the Ascendancy choices, we're using basically the same thing that we were for Flicker Strike, but instead of taking I Am the Thunder, we're going to be taking I Am the Blizzard. This is just going to help us shift over to being more cold damage focused instead of lightning damage. But outside of that, we're still taking Lead Me Through Grace, Sunder My Enemies, and Scatter Them to the Winds. And we're actually still using all of the same support gems in Elemental Expression as well. If you want, I will just point out, you could drop Scatter them to the Winds, aka Elemental Expression. You could drop these 2 nodes and actually pick up I Am the Thunder, and I think that would be slightly better or roughly just as good. Probably not a major difference, but that's just something you could consider if you feel like you don't really like Elemental Expression, for example, or maybe you've got a lower end PC, for example, and the extra projectiles from Elemental Expression aren't really making things any better in that regard. So that's just an option I wanted to throw out there. And lastly, for the passive tree, I just want to quickly touch on the jewels. Of course, as I already mentioned, we have a Megalomaniac. Ours in specific has Primal Growth, which is giving us a lot of extra area of effect, and then also Rapid Strike, which is giving us melee attack speed. The area of effect is very, very nice here because we don't have much access to area of effect near the monk starting point. If we wanted to get any, we would have to route all the way down here. This section is where most of the area of effect is, and that's a pretty long trip. Doesn't seem that worth it to me, and I don't really think it's necessary. Speaking of the Megalomaniac, I do actually specifically have a Megalomaniac trade link on the Mobalytics planner. You can open that up, and as you can see, I have all of the valuable, maybe not all of, but a large majority of the valuable notables that you would be looking to get. You can pretty easily just hit search. You can see here's a decent one for 5 divines. You're getting attack speed and area of effect. 8 divines, you're getting attack speed, area of effect. You get the idea. If you want to be a big baller, you actually turn on this one down here as well. And this will actually give you even better, an even better gem. You'll also need to turn off these 2, just to be clear. Or no, actually you don't. You can leave those on, my mistake. But yeah, you'll just turn on this count. You'll hit search again, and you have less results, but these are going to be better. They're going to guarantee that you get Primal Growth or Impact Area, and these are the 2, most bang for your buck area of effect nodes, which is primarily what we want from our Megalomaniac. The attack speed helps, but the area of effect is definitely more valuable. And besides the Megalomaniac, we're still using the same Heart of the Well jewel that we were using for our Flicker Strike build, just movement speed, fire damage, crit damage bonus, extra chaos damage. There's plenty of good options here. Same way that I have a Megalomaniac trade link, I also have a Heart of the Well trade link. This has all of the best options here. So same thing, you just hit search, sort by sum. You can obviously set your own max price. I have it set to 25 divines, but you don't need to spend that much. You can bring it down to 12 as an example. Hit search, sort by sum, and here's like a decent one. You've got movement speed, increased evasion, extra fire damage, flash charges gained. Obviously, with this setup in specific, you should look for one with chaos damage. So the easiest way you could do that is you could just swap the gain fire damage, for example. You could do chaos damage. Gain percent of damage is extra chaos. Hit search, sort by sum again, and here you go. You got move speed, skill speed, gain extra damage is chaos, and then you've got like a useless stat here, but that's just because we've got the max price set pretty low at 12. Alrighty, and last but not least, I just want to quickly go over some of the gearing related info. First things first, I just want to bring your attention back to the Mobalytics Planner, and I highly recommend you come down to the equipment section, and this is going to be your best friend. First things first, you can get a Chrome extension that allows you to export items from the trade site and then put them into Path of Building to see if it's going to be an upgrade or a downgrade for you. Just to like show you kind of what I'm talking about, if I open up the ring trade link just as an example, I'll go ahead and sort by sum, which is usually what you want to do with my trade links, is just sort by sum. Then I now have this export button thanks to the Chrome extension, which is POE2 Trade Item Exporter. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Trade Item Exporter. I can click export. It's copied to clipboard. I can go to my POB, go to the item section, click over here, hit Control V, and boom, here's this ring, 23 divines. It's a pretty massive damage upgrade, but obviously it's not quite the right resistances for us. In this case, we'd be losing 92% lightning resistance, which would be a massive issue, obviously. But that's just because this one has all LE fire and cold. It doesn't have any lightning. So obviously, you know, if you were in my boat where you need lightning, you'd have to like scroll down a little bit, do a little bit of window shopping. Boom, there's one with lightning. That might be good. Here's another one with lightning. That might be good. Or you could even come make an addition to the filter yourself. You could just add in lightning resist, total, and I could say 40. So I want the ring to at least have 40 lightning res. Now I'm going to sort by sum again. And boom, you can see this one's got 28 lightning plus 15 all. We're good to go. So that's how you make use of the Chrome extension plus the trade links. The trade links are very helpful. I'll briefly mention that if you're looking at pieces that are like energy shield evasion pieces, like body armor, helmet, boots, you want to sort of do a combination look at the sum and the energy shield. So if I sort by sum, and I see, okay, the highest one within our max price, which is 5,000 Exalted Orb equivalent, which is roughly 12 divine. The highest sum is 781. Let me now sort by energy shield. The highest energy shield is 546. So I'm trying to kind of look for a good combination of those two. So here, high energy shield, sum of 641. If I scroll down, okay, this one's looking really good because not only is it really high energy shield, but it's also almost the highest sum as well. So like this would obviously be a really good chess piece. It's got really high energy shield, really high evasion, has really good lightning res. It has max rolled pretty much, faster start of energy shield. It's got deflection rating. Boom. It's an amazing chess piece for 10 divine. The trade links have you covered. You just have to use a little bit of intuition. You might have to work with them just a little bit, but they're extremely, extremely helpful. Moving on to my gear specifically, I'm just going to go through it really quick. And I do just want to quickly mention that if you are someone that just was following along with my Flicker Strike build guides, we're using basically all the same gear. The only thing that has changed is our weapon, our gloves, and one of our jewels. Like we had the regular Sapphire jewel before, and now we have the Megalomaniac. Everything else is the exact same. So if you've been following along with that build guide, you're pretty much already good to go. The only difference for those of you that have been following along with that build guide is our weapon has all the exact same stats. All we did was swap flat fire for flat cold because we need to freeze enemies. So we've got flat cold on the quarterstaff now, as you can see. And then our gloves, we now have, maxed out attack speed gloves, and we actually don't have +2 level of melee skills. There's two reasons for that. One, melee skills or level of melee skills does not apply to our heralds. As you see, if I take off my +3 amulet, my Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder stay the same level. Most of our clearing comes from those. Same with our charge staff. Most of our clearing comes from those. So we don't need melee skills as much, or level of melee skills as much. We just need some for Flicker Strike to still be able to one-shot bosses. The second reason, and this is really the primary reason, is these gloves can be used on like almost any attack build in the game, and they're insanely good. Whereas if you did want to buy a pair that was increased attack speed, increased effect of socketed items for the suffixes, and instead of increased critical damage bonus, you got +2 level of melee skills, that would only be fit for a handful of builds. Like, you couldn't go run that on Deadeye, you couldn't go run that on Amazon or whatever, like, it wouldn't be as good. So, and also the DPS difference is very marginal, like, for everything. So, generally speaking, I would just recommend grabbing a pair like this, ideally with 3 sockets. If you can't afford that, just get 2. The trade link should be for 3, though, I believe. Let me just double check that really quick. Let's go ahead and open up the gloves trade link. And yeah, the gloves trade link is for 3, so it's obviously not that cheap. But if you want, you could just open this up, swap this down to 2, and now you've got much cheaper ones, 11 div, 12 div, and this is going to be, you know, still really, really good. All you need to do at that point is then buy some attack speed runes, slap them in there. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but it does make a really big difference for your Tempest Flurry movement. You don't need it, though, just to be clear. Like, this is not helping your damage, this is not helping your survivability, this is just helping your speed. So you can still make the build work without these, and you can farm up the currency that you'd need to buy them. But outside of those changes, for the people that have been following the Flicker Strike builds, everything else is the exact same. So you're like good to go. I appreciate you checking out the video. I'll catch you in the next one. For anybody that's new, that hasn't been following the Flicker Strike builds, here's the rest of the gear. So we have a Headhunter, obviously. Our amulet is an easy craft amulet. It's global defenses, evasion rating, and then desecrated prefix with crit chance, crit damage bonus, plus level melee skills. FG Corbin 21 on YouTube has an extremely easy to follow video that'll teach you how to craft this amulet. He only has one thing he doesn't explain in there, which is when you go to roll your prefixes, you can hit accuracy and you can brick your amulet. Everything else he talks about is perfectly on track. It's still very easy to craft. It's definitely very worth it to craft one. Outside of that, for our ring, we just have massive triple LE res as suffixes, and then we have double flat and rarity for our prefixes. In regards to the prefixes, you could certainly swap out rarity for a triple flat damage, or you could put % increased lightning damage here. That'd be just fine. I just put a high priority on rarity because I think rarity is still hella broken, and we don't need the extra damage, so rarity is good here. For the boots, obviously as much move speed as you can afford, and then max energy shield and evasion for the rest of the prefixes. For the suffixes, it's whatever you need. Attributes, resistances, rarity, doesn't really matter. Deflection is decent here, but I think you should only get deflection on one piece, so either your boots or your chest piece. I wouldn't recommend getting it on both. And obviously we have it here on our chest piece. Chest piece, very similar to the boots, just no move speed. You should be getting triple defense prefixes, so evasion, energy shield prefixes. For your suffixes, same thing, whatever you need, except I think it's pretty mandatory that you get faster start of energy shield recharge because the chest piece is the only place you can get that. So I'd say that's pretty mandatory. Your other two suffixes, deflection rating, attributes, resistances, all good options. Helmet, same thing. Defense prefixes, obviously. And then for the suffixes, whatever you need. Rarity, resist, crit chance. If you need it, it's actually more helpful to get crit chance for this setup than it was for the Flicker Strike setup because we have more things besides Flicker Strike now that we want to crit. But we were able to make it work without getting crit chance on the helmet. We just got a lot more crit chance on our quarterstaff now. And that's going to be all the gear. Obviously, the Mobalytics Planner has plenty of this information written down as well if you ever need to reference back to it. Keep in mind, for your weapon, you do need 1 Greater Mind Rune, which is going to give you 2.5% physical damage as Mana Leech, and combine that with Walker of the Wilds, which makes that work with elemental damage as well. This gives us infinite mana sustain, so you never have to hit your mana flask, basically. It's very, very nice. You're going to need the other rune to have gain % damage as extra chaos, so you can actually make the infinite chain effect work. For the helmet, I do have 1 rune here for increased area of effect. I'm kind of just messing around with this, testing it. I don't think it's actually necessary. You could just have double iron rune here, or if you've only got 1 socket in your helmet like most people do, you can just do an iron rune. But, you know, feel free to mess around with the increased area of effect as well. I think it's decent, but not mandatory at all. And yeah, everything else is the same as our Flicker Strike setup. It's all in the Mobalytics planner. Here's the flasks. Make sure you get increased charges on your mana flask. This gives you more value from Ambrosia. For the charms, we've still got Thawing Charm, Dousing Charm, and Staunching Charm. Nothing super crazy there. And yeah, that's going to be all the gear, the passive tree, the gameplay loop, rotation, skills, supports, anything that I didn't cover in the video. I'm sure you can find it in the guide. And if for whatever reason you can't, feel free to leave it as a question down in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later, chefs.